In a small town, nestled between the rolling hills of the countryside, there stood a Walmart that had been the hub of the community for years. But beneath its fluorescent lights and bustling aisles, there lurked a darkness that few dared to acknowledge. One evening, as the store prepared to close for the night, a young employee named Jenna was tasked with restocking the shelves in the electronics section. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Ignoring her unease, Jenna continued her duties until she heard a faint whisper coming from the end of the aisle. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest, as the whisper grew louder and more sinister, seeming to come from the rows of TVs and gaming consoles. Suddenly, the TVs flickered to life, displaying static-filled images of distorted faces and eerie shadows. Jenna stumbled backward in horror, her screams drowned out by the cacophony of voices emanating from the screens. In a panic, she fled the electronics section, only to find herself trapped in a maze of aisles that seemed to shift and change around her. Desperate to escape, Jenna searched for the nearest exit, but the doors were locked tight, trapping her inside the store with whatever malevolent force lurked within. Hours passed as Jenna wandered the darkened aisles, the whispers growing louder with each passing moment. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the lights flickered back on, and she found herself standing in the empty store, the TVs silent once more. Shaken but alive, Jenna fled from the Walmart, vowing never to return. But the whispers haunted her dreams for years to come, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked within the aisles. In another town, on the outskirts of the city, there was a Walmart that seemed to have a sinister reputation all its own. Locals whispered of strange occurrences within its walls, from items disappearing from shelves to eerie sightings in the parking lot after dark. One night, as the store neared closing time, a shopper named Mark found himself wandering the aisles in search of a last-minute purchase. As he made his way through the deserted store, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling out to him from the end of the aisle, soft and melodic, like a siren song. Mark followed the sound, his curiosity getting the better of him until he found himself standing in front of a display of children's toys. To his horror, he saw a young girl standing among the toys, her eyes hollow and empty, her pale skin glowing in the dim light. Without saying a word, she reached out her hand to him, beckoning him closer with a crooked finger. Terrified, Mark turned and ran, the echo of the girl's laughter following him as he fled the store. But when he reached the parking lot, he found himself alone, the girl nowhere to be seen. Shaken to his core, Mark returned home and tried to put the encounter out of his mind. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the girl's haunting gaze staring back at him, a reminder of the darkness that lurked within the Walmart. In a bustling city, there was a Walmart that never seemed to sleep. The store was open 24 hours a day, catering to the needs of night owls and early risers alike. But for the employees who worked the graveyard shift, the store held secrets that few could comprehend. One employee, named David, had been working the midnight shift for years, his routine as familiar as the back of his hand. But one night, as he made his rounds through the empty aisles, he noticed something strange. A flickering light coming from the back of the store. Curious, David followed the light to the stockroom, where he found a door that he had never seen before. Without thinking, he opened the door and stepped inside, only to find himself in a dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch on forever. As he walked, David heard strange noises coming from the walls, whispers and laughter, like the sound of children playing. He quickened his pace, his heart pounding in his chest, until he reached the end of the corridor and found himself standing in a vast, cavernous chamber. To his horror, he saw rows upon rows of shelves filled with strange and exotic items, objects that seemed to defy explanation, their origins shrouded in mystery. But before he could investigate further, David heard a voice calling out to him from the darkness, cold and menacing. In a panic, he turned and fled, the sound of footsteps echoing behind him as he raced back through the corridor. When he finally emerged into the stockroom, he found himself alone once more, the door to the mysterious chamber nowhere to be found. Terrified and disoriented, David stumbled out of the stockroom and collapsed on the floor, his mind reeling from the horrors he had witnessed. From that day on, he never spoke of what he had seen, but the memory of that night haunted him for the rest of his days. Each of these stories serves as a chilling reminder that even the most ordinary places can harbor dark and sinister secrets, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to venture into the unknown.